This week, learn about keyword arguments, also known as ** Kwargs, and how you can use them to help improve your code. Welcome to another MetPy Monday. Hello, I'm John Lehman, a software engineer for Unidata. On this week's MetPy Monday, we're going to talk a little bit about keyword arguments. Last week we talked about arguments, so it makes sense that we'll follow that with keyword arguments, and this will sort of wrap up our Improving Your Plotting Code series, though these are certainly concepts that are applicable to much more than plotting code. So of course, we've got to do our imports. So we're going to use matplotlib, pandas, numpy, and we're going to register our matplotlib converters. If you haven't seen this before, check out last week's MetPy Monday where I sort of explain why we are going to have to do this. We're going to use the matplotlib inline magic. And then I'm actually going to go ahead and register the matplotlib converters. Okay, and I'm going to make a function. So def make plot. And it's going to take a time and a variable to plot. I'm going to get my figure and my axis objects from plot.subplots. And I'm going to call plot with time and var. So now we need to create some times. I'm going to use PD date range, which we used last week, but in a slightly different way. Instead of specifying the frequency, I'm going to specify a start and an end and the number of periods that I want. So we're going to start on today. We're going to end tomorrow. And we've got an extra set of parens there. And then I'm going to specify, instead of the frequency, I'm going to specify the number of periods, which would be 49, because we're going up to and including that last 0z period. I need to make some fake temperature data. So we'll go back to our favorite mp.random.random. In this case, let's just go ahead and make it the length of t. Multiply it by 10 to get a little bit more variance and add an offset. And now I can call my function make plot on time and temperature. And there we go. So we need to do a little bit more cleanup on things, but we have a basic plot. Now, if I wanted to add things like the color of the line or the line style, we've seen how we could do that with dictionaries. We've seen how we could parse things that were passed in as arguments. But I just want to take all the keyword arguments maybe and go ahead and pass them on to my ax.plot there. So in this case, I can use ** Kwargs. That's going to take all the keyword arguments and put them in a dictionary. And then I can unpack that dictionary right into my ax.plot call. So now nothing has changed, but I can take something like color equals tab red and line style equals dashed. And I get the behavior I expect, and I didn't have to code any of those in. So it took these arguments, packed them up as a dictionary, put it in Kwargs, and then we unpacked that right into ax.plot. So it's like we had put those directly into this call. So you can imagine some situations where this might not work. Like let's say I wanted to also give my user the option of passing a Y label in. So I could do that in a couple ways. I could say Y label is going to be temperature as a keyword argument and add Y label, set it to none by default or maybe even to empty string by default. Then we can call set Y label to be Y label. So now we have that label there. It also works if we don't have anything. But I could also use this in Kwargs. So I could take this out, and then using .pop, I could remove that from the dictionary if it exists. So ylabel equals Kwargs. I'm not unpacking the dictionary, so I don't have the ** .pop, ylabel, and if it's not there, I just return an empty string. So there it works. And if I get rid of it, it still works. So one of the downsides to doing this is that your docstring is not as useful, or your function signature is not as useful. So I just see time var and ** Kwargs. Now, if I had in the docstring written out that you can pass ylabel, then my user would know, but it doesn't read as nice when you're looking at the help here. So I would probably avoid that. I would probably leave it using ylabel as an explicitly specified keyword argument here with a default of empty string. Okay, so I think that's a fair function. But now what if I only want my user to be able to specify a certain number of keyword arguments? For example, what if I don't want them to be able to change maybe the color? Because we know that this plot always has to be red. Or I don't want them to change the line style or the line width or other things. I can make a list of allowed plot Kwargs. Maybe line width is going to be allowed and color. So I won't let my user specify line style because maybe they will specify something that just makes the plot look absolutely terrible and I don't trust them. Now I'm going to create a dictionary of plot Kwargs using a dictionary comprehension where the key is going to be the key, the value is going to be Kwargs.pop of the key for the key and value pair in the list of Kwargs.items if the key is in my allowed plot Kwargs. This is a very dense line, arguably too dense. So basically what we're doing is we're going through all of the keys in Kwargs, and if it is in our list of allowed things, then we append it to a dictionary called plot Kwargs. Otherwise, we don't. So it will just get lost to the ether here. The reason I have to wrap this in list is because right now this is just generating or lazily evaluating on demand, and I'm changing the size of the dictionary using .pop. So this, unfortunately, has to be wrapped in list, or I could use .get, but then that would leave those things in my Kwargs, and maybe I want to pull out the ones that I want for my plot and leave everything else in there for something later in my function. So again, it's a little bit dense, and maybe this should be unrolled into a regular loop, arguably, for readability. So now I'm going to unpack plot Kwargs. So run that, we see line style gets ignored. I can set line width, and that works just fine, but line style is not getting applied because it's not in plot Kwargs. I could print in here what's left in Kwargs, and we see that line style is left. It was not in allowed plot Kwargs, so when it got there, it was not popped out of that dictionary, and we could use that later in our function if we wanted. So that's a summary of how I use keyword arguments and how you can use them to make your code even more extensible, though maybe at the expense of some documentation readability. This is why some packages like matplotlib aren't always the easiest to read those doc strings on. I hope that you found this useful, and I'll see you on next week's MetPy Monday.